Today we're going to go over how to build one of the most powerful Class A ships that you can use at the beginning of the game. This is going to be maxing out the amount of damage and cargo capacity, as well as pretty much everything else that a Class A ship can do. Now what's great about Class A is you can use this without having to upgrade your piloting skill, and the base of this ship is going to be completely for free. Although you can use the outline that we're going to be using for this build on pretty much any ship that you want, as long as it's still Class A. And you can kind of take everything that you learn from this to upgrade the ship to B and C in the future as you progress through the game. The damage output of the ship is pretty insane. Very few things are going to survive long enough to be able to do any damage to you, and I really wanted this ship just to serve everything that I needed. We've got 3,920 cargo capacity, 160 shielded cargo for your contraband, we've got 4 crew slots on here, and plenty of other habs built into it, like a captain's quarters, workshop, science lab, pretty much everything you would need on your ship. And everything that you'll learn in today's video will show you all the mechanics that you need to know to build the ship of your dreams. The thing I love most about this ship though is the way that it flows. I hate a ship that is just like a giant maze. We have our landing bay at the back, and then we have our workshop and everything that we could use here for crafting just at the back of the ship. We'll show what's up and down here in a second, but you can see that you can walk right through this to all the different areas. We've got the all-in-one habs here with a bunch of different things, and you can go straight to the cockpit. There's plenty of crew area, and if we head to the back of the ship, we have 2 choices. We can go up into the living quarters, which is just where there's some beds and some things up there, or we can go down right here. This is where we're going to be able to dock with other ships or space stations. And then we also have the captain quarters behind here. This is where you can sleep to be able to get your XP boost, cuddle with your plushies, or just get some work done. The flow of the ship is really clean and incredibly customizable. For this video, we will be using the Outpost ship builder. It has access to the most amount of modules in one place. It's essentially all of the different cities, modules, and pieces all in one spot, except for some of the premium pieces from each of those companies that you can only get from that company themselves. But otherwise, this is an amazing way to be able to build a ship because it's going to give you the most amount of options possible without having to travel around to different cities and spaceports. Now, obviously, to be able to build one of these, you're going to need to build an outpost. I do have plenty of videos on how to build an outpost. You can check those out on the channel, but essentially all you need to do is just add some power, get some materials, and then build your landing pad. It requires adaptive frames, zero wire, beryllium, and iron. Now, the ship that we're going to be using as the baseline for this build is the Razorleaf, which you can get at the beginning of the game for free by doing the Mantis questline. I have a full video on exactly how to get this ship for free, as well as one of the best legendary armor sets right at the beginning of the game. That's the reason that we're using this as our baseline. The Razorleaf is an amazing ship, and we're going to outfit this to be pretty much the best combat ship at the beginning of the game. I do also have the Star Eagle, which is easily the best Class A ship available. It does take quite a bit longer to be able to get. It is a fantastic ship as well, and if you have either of these, you can use either one as your baseline. I do have another build planned for the Star Eagle specifically though. But the great thing about either of these ships is they are Class A, you don't need piloting skill to be able to use them, and you can use them right at the beginning of the game. Now, I have changed up the Razorleaf already a little bit. I've added some habs, but essentially the only thing we're really going to keep from this is the engines, because those are Starship Design Rank 3, which means we can't buy them, but since we already have them, we can use them, and they are very good engines. We're also going to keep the reactor. We've got the shielded cargo in the back, but we're basically going to kind of take the majority of this ship apart and build something a little bit more versatile for us. So we're going to leave this ship on the side. The first thing we're going to do is we want to add a new cockpit. I want to be able to add more crew members to this, so we're going to be looking for something that adds 4 crew members to start off with here, so we can use any of these Viking cockpits. I'm going to use the one with the most cargo space available. Now, you'll notice when you're in the ship builder that if you grab something and you look at the right side of the screen over here, on the computer we have R and F to be able to raise and lower things. This will come in very handy when you're going to place stuff. Now, the next thing we want to add is some structural. Is nice if you kind of look at a certain part of your ship that you want to connect to. If you point, say, I want to add something right here. If we hit G, we can see what pieces are available there, and you can scroll through them and see what they look like on that spot. Essentially, I'm looking for something that looks kind of nice with this cockpit, and I do like the Tayo braking engine, so we're going to add that in. Behind this other piece that we just added, I want to add the Tayo Engineering Bay 3x1 bottom. This is going to provide us with another crew station, and it meshes up really good with this front piece. And it does provide more attachment points on the bottom and the sides to be able to expand our ship more. On top of that engineering bay, we're going to add a 2x1 all-in-one berth. So we can drag this and we can put it right on top. And from here, there's a couple different things we can do. I do want to make our ship look good as well, so we're going to add a little bit more structure to this. We're going to add in 2 of these Nova cowlings. So you can grab one, and you can hit Z or whatever button it is on whatever you're playing to be able to add it. So that way we don't have it strictly just kind of all boxy. You can move it up too if you want, so you can kind of have it look like this. There's a bunch of different options you can do here. Now you can make this ship quite a bit longer if you want, depending on how many things you want to add on to this entire ship. There's a lot of expansion possibilities if you want. We're going to go with the kind of basic version of this first. We're going to steal the kind of loading area, or the landing bay rather, and we're going to attach that right to the back of this. So that way we can go from the landing bay into the engineering bay if we want. And on top of this, we're going to put another Taio 2x1. You can really add whatever you want here. For me, I'm going to use the science lab for this. So we're going to put this on top of here. Now do keep in mind you don't have to use Taio either. Whatever you have available and whatever you like the most is what you can use. Now this is going to allow us to enter up into this hab here, and then we'll be able to travel all the way through the ship to the cockpit. Now the cargo bays are going to be pretty important. Essentially what we want to do is we want to balance cargo capacity with mass. The more mass we have, the more mobility we lose. As well, eventually we're going to start losing jump range as well. So these Store Max 50s provide us with 320 cargo, but for each of them we're losing 8 mobility right now. Now I've decided to add 4 of these because I really do want a lot of cargo capacity, so I've added 4 to each side. And adding on our shielded cargo, that's going to give us a total of 3,920 cargo space. If you don't want that much cargo space, you can by all means reduce it and add other things to the ship as well. Basically any other hab will attach to these same cargo spots. Now we are going to want to grab the reactor and put it onto this ship as well. And we're going to want to use that grav drive as well. I also added a Nova cowling on the top in front of this reactor just to kind of make it look not so weird up there. Also, if you don't want to use this engineering bay, we have some other really great options we can use for the bottom as well. If we delete that out, we can add in something like the all-in-one berth. We'll have to use the mid so we still get all the connection points. And we can add in the captain's quarters. The captain's quarters are actually really good because you get a bed in there where you can rest to pass time, but you also get a 10% XP bonus when you do that. And then attached to that, we can use something like the Taio companionway 1x1. Now what we're going to do is we're going to actually add the Taio workshop to the top. So this is a mid workshop piece. And instead of having the grav drive here, I'm putting this 2x1 here. So it's just going to be above the science lab. So we have the landing bay that goes to the companionway, which then leads to our captain's quarters. We also have a slim docker down here at the bottom. This is how we're going to dock to stations and other ships. We've also attached our shielded cargo to the back of this. And then I'm going to add on our fuel tank, and I'm going to add another fuel tank to this as well. But what we do need to do is we need to actually upgrade our grav drive, and we're also going to upgrade our shields too. So if we go to our grav drives, the one we are going to use is the R3000 Alpha grav drive. This is going to give us grav jump thrust 23 and drive health 76. It's also max power of 9. We actually need this since we're kind of maxing out the capacity of a Class A ship. We're really kind of pushing the edges of what we're able to do with a Class A, which means we need that extra grav thrust to actually be able to jump. We're also going to upgrade our shield to the 30S Protector shield generator, which gives us 420 shield max health. If you have Starship Design Rank 2, you can go for the 40S. And then going to attach the landing gear to the science lab like this. So that way we need to have everything level. So your docking bay and your landing gear all needs to be level as well. So we're going to attach this to both sides. And then we're going to use the wings, so the Stroud engine bracer, as well as the DT60 engines. We're going to attach that to the edge of the workshop, and then the engines to the end of that on both sides. And we can add another one of the fuel tanks on here if you want. You don't have to. You can add it here or really wherever you want. We'll probably add something here to make it look a little bit nicer as well. Now, I've noticed that when I start attaching things, I get this weird thing where it cannot reach the cockpit from the landing bay. This has happened a few times when I've been messing around with building ships where everything works perfectly fine, then suddenly something happens and it doesn't, and I think it's this front piece actually. So if we delete this, it has something to do with a little bit with what you attach to the front, and I'm not exactly sure why it happens, but if that does happen, what we need to do is kind of just reattach everything and make sure that it flows to the landing bay properly. So the best way to solve this when you're adding all of those pieces from your cockpit back to the landing pad, you can kind of just click, like hover your mouse or whatever it is over the part you want to attach it to, and then you want to hit the add part, and then it's going to add in kind of right at that attachment point. So we want to add our all-in-one berth mid, and then behind that, we want to make sure we hover over that. We want to add in our science lab or whatever we want to add to the back. Could be an infirmary, really whatever you want. And then we want to make sure that below this, that's where we're going to add our landing bay. Now, if we check our errors, we should see that we now have a path to the cockpit. So if you encounter issues with that, you'll have to juggle it back and forth. The building system is great. There's so much freedom with it, but it is a little wonky at times. And then you can just add in the rest of the pieces that you took apart. If you're still having a lot of problems with that particular landing bay and not getting a path to the cockpit, you can use the 120 LD landing bay, which kind of looks better actually anyways. It might be the better choice, and I've had way less issues with this one. To the front of this Alpha grav drive, I'm going to add some structure to it. There's a few different things you can add, but I'm just going to go with this Innova engine strut. I think it'll blend in well once we recolor the actual grav drive. Now what we need to do is actually just deal with the whole landing gear problem. Since we are a thick ship now, and we have a lot of weight capacity, we actually need to add a lot of different types of landing gear. Well, a couple different types. So if we go over to gear, we're actually going to go to the AccuLander 11s, and you'll notice something a little bit interesting when you equip these. So on this side, you'll see that if we drag it out, we have all sorts of different attachment points. But if we go to this side, I think it should happen where it's going to look different, right? And what you can do is you can actually drag this out, and you can edit it, and then you can hit Z, and you'll notice that we'll get that different version. I don't know why it doesn't tell you that you actually can do that, but we do want to do that. So we're going to equip those there, and then we're going to drag our other landing gears over there, and we're going to put this landing gear over here. So we're still going to reuse all the other landing gears, and essentially we're really thick now. But you know what? It's going to be great. So on the front of this, we're going to add some structure to make it look a little bit better. There's a bunch of different options you can add here. The braking engines look really good. You've got those thrusters. You got a ton of different options to kind of make this look a lot better. I'm actually going to use these Stroud braking engines. The Tayo cowlings also look pretty good. If you want something a little bit closer to the ship though, the Dymos brake engines look really good too. Attached to the living quarters, we want to make this look a little bit better too. You can actually add more habs up here if you want, but you got to be careful to not get too heavy or your grav drive won't be able to support it. So instead of adding any more habs, what I'm going to do is I could add on another one of these Nova cowlings. What I actually want to do is use these Stroud caps, and if you hit Z, you can rotate them, and I just want to cover some of these cargo containers, and I think that looks a lot better. Now, last but not least, we need to add our weapons, and we're going to completely change up the weapon system on here. We're going to use the PB-30 electron beams. There's also a disruptor beam that does more damage than this one. If you have that, this one will look a lot better on the ship. But for the purposes of right now, we're just going to add 4 of these electron beams. They have a range of 3,300, high hull, and shield damage. These are absolutely fantastic. You can add these to any spot on the ship that you want. Because we're going to be doing a ton of damage with these pulse lasers, we also want something else that we can use to be able to actually disable the engines of the enemy ships without destroying them. And for this, we're going to use the Spark 750 suppressor. It's pretty expensive, but it's definitely going to be worth it. I'm going to add that to the top of the ship. So now you'll see that the only error that we have, other than low mobility and missing weapon assignments, is the unassigned weapons. To fix this, we can tab over to weapons, and for W0, we're going to add our electron beams, and for weapon 1, we are going to add our suppressor. Now we're still going to have an error for the missing weapon assignment. This isn't required. We don't have to have 3 different types of weapons, and we don't need them because we're going to be doing so much damage anyways. Now, low mobility can be fixed. We can replace our engines on here to increase our mobility if we want. The only real engine upgrade that we can do is adding a White Dwarf 1020 engine, which is going to give us maneuvering thrust of 2,600. 2 of these will get us up to a mobility of 43. While it's better than where we were at, it's maybe not the most worthwhile upgrade. If you have Starship Design rank 2 or 4 though, You could upgrade to these white dwarf engines here that have significantly high maneuverability, so there is still room to upgrade the ship considerably, as far as engines and maneuverability go. The last option you can do is actually add a 5th engine to this, which is going to max out your engine power. And you can do this by adding an A-Moon, or I don't even know how to pronounce that, 4 engine, which will give you another 9 maneuverability, getting you up to 52. Once you're happy with the ship, you can hit tab to exit, and you can still accept. It's only warnings, there's nothing critically broken on the ship. Now once you're done building, you can set it as your home ship, and there are a ton of different ways to be able to upgrade this, but I really do hope you all enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'll see you all in the next one.